Are you interested in smart citizens instead of smart cities? Our summary today works with the article titled Essay on the Smart City or a Manifesto for Smart Citizens Instead, from 2012 by Dan Hill, published first on the CityofSound blog, then on Medium. This is a great preparation to our next interview with Dan Hill in episode 288, talking about what the real smart city could be. Since we're investigating the future of cities, I thought it would be interesting to see why smart citizens need to be in the center of smart cities. This article advocates for shifting the focus of smart city developments from technology-driven solutions to citizen-centered approaches, emphasizing the role of smart citizens in shaping future cities.
What is the future for cities? Do you want to learn more about them? Do you want to know how others think about them? Do you want to be part of the conversation? Then this is the right place.
Welcome to today's What is the Future for Cities podcast and its research episode. My name is Fanny, and today I will introduce a research paper by summarizing it. The episode really is just a short summary of the original paper, and in case it is interesting enough, I would encourage everyone to check out the whole paper. This is also an experiment, as I produced and generated the summary part with Notebook LM as two hosts dissecting the whole report.
Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be tackling this idea of smart cities. It's a hot topic, tons of buzz. We've got an essay here called On the Smart City, or a manifesto for smart citizens instead. It's from the blog CityofSound. And I think it's a good one to dig into.
Definitely a thought-provoking piece. It really gets you thinking about all this technology coming into cities and whether it's actually making them better places to live.
Oh, no.
Not. Is it all just like shiny gadgets and optimizing traffic flow? Or is there something deeper to it? What does it really mean to be smart?
That's what the author's getting at, I think. They're pushing back against this idea that a smart city is just about efficiency and data, because about the human element.
It's easy to get caught up in the tech itself and forget about the people who actually live in these places.
Yeah.
Exactly. And they use this example of Songdo, South Korea, if you heard of this. It's like a city built from scratch. All the latest technology designed to be super efficient, but it feels sterile. It's missing something.
Oh, yeah. I read about that. Wasn't there something about how one of the developers even said that video conferencing would eliminate the anxiety of figuring out where to meet up with friends?
Yeah, I remember that.
But isn't that part of the charm of city life, though? The spontaneity.
Totally. Those random encounters, bumping into someone, discovering a new cafe, that kind of energy, that's what makes a city come alive.
So maybe a city can't be smart if it doesn't feel human. But then how do we use technology in a way that actually enhances urban life?
That's where this idea of smart citizens comes in. The author's really celebrating how people and communities are using tech in these really creative ways to shape their cities from the ground up.
Ooh, I like that.
It's like taking all that power and putting it in the hands of the people who actually live there.
It makes me think about how, like with social media, Occupy or the Arab Spring, these were huge movements. And every day, people were using technology to organize and make their voices heard.
Absolutely. And even on a smaller scale, think about crowdfunding platforms like Kickstarter.
Yeah. People are coming together, raising money for projects that they care about. It's a whole new way of making things happen in your community.
And the author talks about this great example from Helsinki. It's called Restaurant Day. Basically, it's this citizen-led festival where people just set up pop-up restaurants all over the city. They're using social media and online tools to navigate the regulations and bring people together around food.
Oh, that's so cool. So you've got these top-down, impersonal smart city projects, and then these bottom-up smart citizen efforts that are all about community and creativity. So where do we go from here? How do we find the right balance?
The essay's arguing that we need a more integrated approach, where the energy of the smart citizens is actually supported by a more responsive and adaptable form of government.
So it's not about choosing one over the other. It's about finding a way for them to work together.
Exactly. And it's like those shared space traffic systems where they actually get rid of traffic lights and signs. And it's just people interacting more directly.
Really? Wait, so you're telling me that taking away the rules can make things safer?
It sounds crazy, but yeah. There's studies showing that these shared spaces can actually reduce accidents because people have to pay more attention and communicate better.
Wow, so you're saying we need to apply that same thinking to how we manage cities?
It's a big shift in mindset, for sure, both for citizens and for people in government. But if we want to create cities that are truly smart, cities that work for everyone, maybe that's what it takes. A little less control and a little more trust. This whole idea of smart citizens, the essay kind of breaks it down further into like active versus passive citizens.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. It had something to do with how people use technology, right?
Exactly. So active citizens, they're using tech as a tool, right? To engage with their city. They're problem solving. They're taking initiative. They're making things happen.
So like the restaurant day folks we were talking about.
Exactly. They're not just consuming technology. They're using it to actually shape their environment.
Whereas passive citizens, it's more like they're letting technology manage their lives for them.
Yeah. And the author's point is that this can lead to people being less engaged with their surroundings, less aware.
What makes me think about, like, all these smart buildings nowadays, they can adjust the temperature and lighting automatically, which is great for energy efficiency. But does that also mean people are less conscious of their own consumption?
That's a really interesting point. If you never have to think about turning off the lights or adjusting the thermostat, do you even realize how much energy you're using?
Or how your actions are impacting the environment?
And it goes beyond just individual actions. The essay also critiques this trend of like urban control rooms, these high-tech command centers where officials can monitor the whole city.
Oh yeah, I've seen pictures. They look super futuristic.
But the author argues that this whole centralized approach to city management kind of reinforces this idea that we can control everything, predict and manage every aspect of the city through data.
But cities aren't machines.
Exactly. They're complex, dynamic, full of unpredictable human behavior.
Think about walking through a city on a busy afternoon. All the sights, sounds, smells, the random encounters. You can't capture that through data points and sensors.
Lose that human element, that sense of energy and possibility.
And the author even questions whether efficiency should be the ultimate goal. We're so obsessed with optimizing everything, streamlining processes, eliminating waste.
But what if a little bit of inefficiency can actually be a good thing?
Wait, really? How?
Think about traffic congestion. It's always seen as this huge problem, right? But the author points out that while traffic can be frustrating, it also creates opportunities for interaction, for chance encounters, for discovery.
That's an interesting way to look at it.
It's about shifting our perspective and recognizing that a city thrives on a certain amount of spontaneity.
So maybe instead of trying to eliminate traffic entirely, we should be thinking about how to make it more productive, more enjoyable, more human-centered.
Exactly. This essay is really about redefining what it means for a city to be successful. It's not just about smooth-flowing traffic or the latest gadgets. It's about creating a city that's vibrant, engaging, and ultimately livable.
So it comes back to people, fostering those human connections, creating spaces where people can thrive.
And recognizing that technology is a tool. It can enhance our cities, but it can also be used to control and surveil.
So how do we make sure it's being used for good?
The essay argues that it starts with critical thinking. We need to question the assumptions behind these smart city initiatives, make sure they align with our values.
So we shouldn't just blindly embrace every new technology that comes along.
We need to be thoughtful about how it's being used, who it's benefiting, and we need to be aware of the potential for bias in these systems.
The bias.
How algorithms are designed by humans, right? So they can reflect the biases of their creators.
So a smart city could actually perpetuate inequalities if we're not careful.
It's definitely a risk. For example, facial recognition technology. It's been shown to be less accurate at identifying people of color. So if that's being used for surveillance in a smart city, it could lead to discriminatory outcomes.
Wow, that's a scary thought.
It's why we need more transparency and accountability in how these technologies are being developed and deployed.
So it's about being smart, not just in terms of technology, but also in terms of our values, our vision for the future.
Exactly. The essay encourages us to reimagine what's possible and to use our collective intelligence to create cities that are truly smart, sustainable, and just.
So much to think about here. It's like we have all this incredible technology, but knowing how to use it wisely, that's the tricky part.
Yeah, that's really the crux of it, isn't it? We can't just assume that more tech automatically equals a better future. It's about being intentional, about how we design and implement these systems.
And who's involved in that process, right? Because how do we avoid creating these smart cities that are really just like sophisticated systems of control and surveillance? How do we make sure technology is actually empowering people?
The essay argues for a pretty fundamental shift. It's about moving away from purely technological solutions and really centering human needs and being in the whole process.
So instead of starting with what can technology do, we should be asking what kind of city do we want to live in?
Exactly. And then figure out how tech can help us get there.
Not the other way around.
Because technology is a tool, it's not a solution in itself.
It can be used for good or bad. Look at social media, for example. It can be amazing for connecting people, building communities, but it can also be used to spread misinformation, to manipulate people.
Yeah, the author talks about that too. We need to be more critical of social media, of how these platforms work. They're designed to grab our attention, to collect our data.
And we need to hold these companies accountable.
Absolutely.
Like, we're all part of this giant experiment, and we're still trying to figure out the rules.
In a way, that's true.
We've never had this much technological power before, and it's up to us to shape how it's used, how it impacts our cities.
And our lives.
So what does this all mean for our listeners, for everyday people trying to make sense of all this? What can we do? Where do we even begin?
The essay ends with this really powerful call to action. It's about becoming more active and engaged citizens.
Smart citizens in the truest sense.
Exactly. It's about asking questions, challenging assumptions, demanding more from our leaders.
And from ourselves.
Yeah, because we all have a role to play in shaping our cities.
This deep dive has been, I don't know, it's really made me think about the role of technology in my own life, in my community, and it's definitely inspiring me to get more involved.
I think that's the whole point, right? To empower people with the knowledge and the motivation to make a difference.
So we hope this conversation has sparked some ideas for you too, and that you'll keep exploring these issues, keep asking the tough questions, because the future of our cities, it really does depend on all of us.
What is the future for cities podcast?